Guys, we got a lot to run through. I do want to revisit and recap some of the Champions Cup action that we saw last week and heading into a bunch of big games. Nashville, Miami is the easy layup that we need to talk about. But how about Brandon Vasquez dropping a goal in his debut against his former club, FC Cincinnati? Had to break the hearts of all the FC Cincinnati fans that are sitting there wanting to see it, but also not really wanting to see it. And then, of course, they don't get the result. But some clubs with some good opportunities to go down to Mexico and maybe start to to continue to change that narrative and pick up some results. I think that's a big one. Dax, we got to talk about your debut in Atlanta. That'll be a good one because I've been there. I've seen it. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about that. And then we got a couple other things within the league that I think are really important. New York Red Bull, they're off to a hot start. Toronto is stingy in the back, which is brand new for them. A big result, Rocky Mountain Cup. And then we also, I think, have some other maybe just notable stories to touch on. Maybe Big Boi. Maybe there's a couple of other things around that, we'll see. We'll see. But let's dive in.
What's the toughest part about being a journeyman in a new city?
Well, Gordo, you know this as well as I do. Being a journeyman in a new city or a city that you're staying in is always difficult. The uncertainty of the future. Are you going to stay? Are you going to go somewhere else? Back in 2020 with Nashville SC, when we had a brand new team, everyone coming to a new city, there was only one person that we trusted to get our real estate needs done, and that's Erin Mishu with Fikes Realty Group. She made everything perfect, flawless, seamless. We had absolutely no issues getting into our house here in Nashville, and all my teammates felt the same way. You can check Erin out at majorleague-realestate.com.
Major League Journeymen back in the house. My two favorite compadres, Alan Gordon, Dax McCarty. We were chatting a little bit offline about the recent increase in our subscriptions. So I wanted to share with all of our fans and all of our fellow journeymen. Alan Gordon has committed now for actually, what was it? Until the year 2037, for an additional 100 subscriptions and subscribers, he will keep the mustache on for another 13 years, which I think is commendable out of you, Gordo. I'm thrilled that this is on the table, and I think it's an achievable goal for us. And then Dax, I know, we were talking about maybe a goal for every subscription, but that's completely unrealistic.
I've committed to continue playing until 2037.
Well, but you're also, I think you've agreed to attempting a backheel pass in the box for every subscription. Didn't specify which box, the attacking third or the defensive third, but this will happen now at the Benz. So I think if that's not good enough reason to get some of our viewership switched over to subscriptions, I don't know what else is out there.
What are you committing to?
I'm committing to you guys for the rest of my life.
Boo.
How about that?
Boo.
No, maybe making good on all the bets that I've lost to Gordo. I actually might have to meet him and take him to golf somewhere. And maybe we bring some fans. What do we think about that, Gordo?
No. I don't want to see any fans on my off time.
No. Gordo, you don't have any fans to begin with. These would be my fans or Dax's fans. I want to start off because we finished last week talking about the Champions Cup, and I do think we got another really good slate of games this week, the follow-up, the second legs. But there was a lot of intrigue for me, and I think that's something that I think is a really positive. We obviously had a little bit of a back and forth with Wingard about, are people going to watch games on a Tuesday night? How do you make it more accessible? What are the different types of things? But most importantly, these games are good games. I mean, I think they're fun games. They're engaging. There are teams that are taking this very seriously, which we've all played in them. So that you take it seriously. But in the beginning of the season, sometimes it can be challenging. With the way that the calendar works now, I feel like our MLS squads are in much better form and much more interesting to watch at this point in the season than they've ever been. And they're actually putting up results. The first game that I thought we should probably chat about, which is, pretty run-of-the-mill standard operating procedure here, is to talk about Messi and Miami and Nashville. But I thought it would be interesting, as we were kind of texting about it and watching it, just to get your guys' take on the game. In Nashville, 2-2, I think that there's a couple different storylines here that we need to address. Let's first talk about, and Gordo, I want for you to comment on this, at least the opening. Let's talk about the result, because I think that I don't remember what minute it was, but there was a late game substitution from Gary Smith, or a flurry of late game substitutions from Gary Smith that completely changed the complexion of his lineup, and they were up 2-1. And is he responsible for giving that game away, or would you have managed the game the same way that he did in getting some of his players that maybe weren't 90-minute players off the field with a weekend fixture against the Galaxy?
Well, I mean, I think it's tough. It's tough to say. It's tough to be a Monday morning quarterback with that.
No, it's usually pretty easy to be the Monday morning quarterback.
No,
that's why I asked you to comment on it.
I'll tell you why it's tough. It's because they had 10 line changes. They had 10 lineup changes from, their midweek game, Champions Cup game. So we don't know how fit these new players were. Maybe they're not 90-minute fit. So it's got to be an eye test from him. And if he's making all those late subs, he's basically saying, I need fresh legs. And that's understandable to me. If you know that guys aren't 90 minutes fit, which most of them are probably not, because we're in the fourth game of the season, and these guys.
I've got the subs here.
Give them to me, Dax.
Goodie comes off for Drew Yearwood.
Give me the minutes. You got the minutes? Yep.
Goodie and Daniel Lovitz come off for Drew Yearwood, Taylor Washington.
Yep.
Jacob Shaffelburg, Hani Mukhtar, Walker Zimmerman all subbed out for Mackenzie Gaines, Teal Bunbury, Jack Mayer. So
what minute?
82nd minute.
Yeah,
so Nashville's up. I believe Nashville's up 2-0 or 2-1 at that point.
2-1, right.
2-1 before all the substitutions. So to give Gordo a little bit of a break here and to help him, because I know what he's trying to get at. Daniel Lovitz, Hani Mukhtar, Walker Zimmerman, all choppy preseasons, not 90 minutes fit. So giving Gary Smith a little bit of a pass here for the changes, I'm not convinced that those guys were 90 minutes fit. Shaffelburg and Goodie seem to be tactical substitutions, but at the end of the day, I understand. And I think Walker took a pretty bad knock on his knee. I think he got
the help.
I think he took a knee to knee. And so I think he was injured. And that injury is actually legit, because he didn't play against the Galaxy. He's not playing tomorrow night against Miami in the return fixture. So there you go.
Okay.
That's a little bit more context.
Thanks for helping me out by saying the exact same thing that I said. I said they weren't 90 minutes fit, and you just said they weren't 90 minutes fit. So thank you for allowing me your tutelage.
I just know that you had no clue what the subs were. So I'm trying to help you.
I appreciate that. Because I did not. But I know what Gary Smith is thinking. Right.
Okay.
So, like I said.
And what's Gary Smith thinking?
He's thinking, hey, I got to protect this lead. So let me get some fresh legs on there, like I said before. And so I can't blame this. I can't blame it on him. He's trying to do the right things and get some fresh legs in there. And it's going to work. It's going to work one way or another when you do that. You're either going to get guys that are in the flow of the game, have their second wind, and can manage the game through, because the guys that Dax just mentioned are all seasoned vets. Those are all ballers. And what happens sometimes, Gargs, is that when you take these players out, you lose possession, because Hani is going to get the ball and attack, and sometimes your attack is your best defense, right? And then you got guys coming in, especially in large numbers like that. If you got 5, it takes a little while to get the flow of the game. It's, they got to all connect together. And obviously, if you see the last goal, they weren't connected. They weren't in. They're leaving guys open in the box, and they just weren't clued into the game. So I don't think it's his fault. It happened because of the subs, I think, because they were disjointed once you have the influx of players. However, I'm not going to put that on him. I'm not. Because you do the right thing.
Okay, I'm going to take the other side of this. This is half your lineup you're subbing out, right? This is not just a run-of-the-mill game. This is not just an early MLS game. This is a game against Messi, which means that every eyeball in U.S. soccer at the time that is tuning into soccer is watching this game specifically. Number one. Number two, it is Champions Cup, and you now have Messi in Miami at your house up a goal, right? So outside of Zimmerman, which maybe we can argue that that's an injury substitution, maybe Mukhtar because he hasn't played, so maybe you're bringing him off guaranteed no matter what. But the rest of those, so Goodie, Shaffelburg, and Lovitz outside back shouldn't be coming off the field. No ifs, ands, or buts, especially not in the 74th minute. That's a substitution where you're looking at things and you're like, okay, maybe he doesn't have it. He shouldn't be coming off the field. Goodie, defensive midfielder, shouldn't be coming off the field, especially with the amount that he's antagonizing Suarez and Messi and Busquets in the game. And then third, Shaffelburg, he runs 127 minutes for fun on Tuesday mornings. So the fact that he's coming off the field to close out a game doesn't really make any sense to me. So now you have Mukhtar and Zimmerman coming off the field. Okay, if those are your changes. The Galaxy midweek or on the weekend, sandwiched in between, yes, I would feel more comfortable as a tactician manager to throw some different bodies out there and bring this around where maybe you're bringing those guys in to close off a game at home with a result potentially at hand, not the other way around. You have a result in hand. I felt like Gary made some really questionable decisions there to close that game out. And from a tactical standpoint, Gordo, I understand what you're saying. That, yeah, get fresh legs on, right? But like against Messi and against an oiled machine that scores goals at the end of games for fun and that doesn't slow down, I think they threw it away. And I think that they threw it away now heading into maybe a result opportunity in Miami. I don't think that they have that now, giving two goals up at home.
I think that it's easy to look at it one way or another, but the truth is that I don't even know about the context of the subs. I haven't talked to any of the guys, so I don't know if they were pre-planned. I'm just not sure, right? But you can look at it now and say, it was probably the wrong decision because on the last goal they conceded to Luis Suarez, they were disjointed on the back line, and you lose track of a goal scorer who's one of the best goal scorers of the last generation. So I understand your point. What I'll say is that was Nashville's easily their best performance of the season from top to bottom. Jacob Shaffelburg, the sweetest, loveliest human being on the planet. He was just a pain in the ass, a pain in Miami's ass the entire time. And he has been. And in my opinion, Nashville is doing a really good job of showing a blueprint kind of how to frustrate and how to deal with Inter Miami. They're going to have the ball. This is how Tata Martino coaches. They are going to have the ball more times than not, at home, away from home. Nashville doesn't care about that. And this is why Nashville has been so effective at playing against them. Miami hasn't beaten Nashville since Messi's been there in regulation. It's only been draws, I think. So you can look at it a million different ways. I look at this as a fantastic performance by Nashville. I think they should have had more. Shaq Moore scored a goal to make it 3-1 that got called back by VAR by like a fingernail of offside, which is, in my opinion, asinine. A ridiculous call. Ridiculous call.
I would agree with that.
To go back and chalk that goal off. I can't fathom why you would do that because we don't have the actual Premier League geometry lines. We don't have it. So it's not clear.
Let's be honest. We all know why. Because that presents a much tougher hurdle for Messi and Miami to move forward.
Fine, I can get behind that. It's a ridiculous call. So Nashville should have been up 3-1. Let's say Suarez scores and it's 3-2. You're feeling amazing if you're Nashville. You go into that game a goal up. You can sit. You can absorb pressure. You can use your speed on the counterattack. I think Miami's the favorite going into this return leg, and I think they should be expected to win. But Nashville, they find a way against Miami. And when you have a guy like Shaffelburg, and Hani is getting back to fitness. Sam Sturridge is hopefully fit enough to start. Guy like Mackenzie Gaines coming off the bench, and you have the pace that Nashville has. That Inter Miami backline cannot deal with pace. They just can't. It's a fact. You got rid of your...
And they don't have a right back right now.
They don't have a right back. You got rid of your fastest guy on the backline in Yedlin. Jordi Alba has no interest in defending. So I think that Nashville has an absolute chance in this game. It's just going to be a matter of how motivated is Messi after almost getting his leg broken by Lukas McNaughton.
Okay. How did they have a chance if they haven't beat him?
Well, they
haven't lost to him either. They haven't beat him.
But you're also kind of making my argument for me. Like that last goal against Suarez, that was a disjointed back line. They should have just been sitting in and just frustrating them to finish the game. Gordo, I know that you've sat in those positions where you come on late, especially against substitutions and substituted back lines. I've been in both sides of it. I've come off the field and I've come into those positions. It's hard. It is really, really difficult in the last 10 to 15 minutes to come in and be a cohesive unit when you make multiple substitutions to close out a game. That is difficult.
In the back line.
That's my point, especially in the back line. You've come in and you've disrupted things because you naturally find bigger holes, bigger gaps, bigger weaknesses to exploit because you're jumping in from 0 to 60 like that, right? So I just thought it was disappointing to see that. But you're talking about Dax. You're also mentioning something that also came out of this game, and that tackle from McNaughton and Messi, or that whatever. It wasn't a tackle.
Yeah, it wasn't a tackle.
A follow through. And I think we actually. I don't know. I don't know what your view is yet, but I think we have opposing views because one, I walked out of that for the first. This is actually the first time that I felt a different way about Messi. I was almost annoyed with how much of a pest and an entitled little brat he was acting like. And granted, listen, man, he's the GOAT, right? He is the best player. But he's also, in a lot of ways, been really humble, which probably, there's a ton of humility, which also gives me like a Michael Jordan type vibe. Michael Jordan, fierce competitor, but you never really got the fact that he was like throwing it in your face and being like a whiny kind of bitch. And that's what I saw from Messi in this game. And I don't know if it was like the Goodie effect, because I played against him and plenty of those like types of personalities that specifically get under your skin. But seeing that, it changed. It definitely had an effect on my opinion of him. And the play in particular where McNaughton goes to clear a ball, continues to follow through, and hits Messi as Messi sticks his foot out and sticks his foot in between, or what he thinks is either maybe blocking a clearance or not, or just doing what he's doing, which he could have been looking to draw a foul too. I don't see a problem with what McNaughton did at all. Right. Not 1 ounce. And I know that you guys were talking about he knew what he was doing, or maybe that's not how, I don't know. I'm interested to see how you feel. As a defender, I'm going through that ball to put it up the field 1,000% of my ability, and that's the only outcome that's going to happen, is my foot is going to go through the ball. Whatever is after that, it's my right to hit the ball and follow through. That's the perspective of a defender. I'm interested to see if you guys have a different view.
I know Lukas. I know him. I know his mentality. I know how he is as a player. He plays on the edge, and he has that edge about him to where he's not going to take any shit from anyone on the field, and he's going to play with an edge to him, but he's not dirty. There are players, mind you, that are out there on a play like that who know exactly what they're doing. They go to clear a ball. They know a guy's coming through, and they leave a little bit extra on a player. Okay? Mm-hmm. That is a fact. And this is not the case, in my opinion, because I don't think Lukas McNaughton is that type of guy who's going to try to intentionally injure someone following through on a long ball. What you're saying, Dan, is pretty spot on for most players. I think you're going to clear a ball. You're putting it as far as you can up the field if a guy's pressing you. It's incidental contact, right? Mm-hmm. He is entering into the space where McNaughton's leg, there's nowhere else for his leg to go. His leg is to go into one place, and that is a follow through where he strikes through the ball. Now, all I'll say is that for the people, saying it's dirty, whatever, like, it's not, because I know who the player is. It's not. There's
nothing dirty about that play in particular.
Correct. But there are guys in certain instances who I think, hey, I'm going to leave a little bit extra on an attacker who's trying to come through, but it looks different to me. The striking of the ball looks different. The motion looks different. Everything that happened in that play was totally natural, and it's an unfortunate play that thankfully did not injure Messi more because it was very dangerous. It looked very dangerous, and I'm shocked Messi even pressed as hard as he did in that moment. That
was what it had kind of been building to that moment. Like there was a bunch of like little pieces where like Messi's pointing his finger at people and like getting in other people's faces. Granted, he's 5'0", so why he should be getting in people's faces, I'm not entirely sure. But Gordo, what's your perspective? Because I also know that you've closed that ball down probably 10,000 times, and you were always 100% committed to trying to make the right play, trying to, whatever that is, block the clearance, block whatever it is, and you would leave your foot in there too. Do you see it differently or no?
No, I agree with you guys 100%. I think it looks more like a clumsy. I think a ball is like in tight, like kind of in tight on him, and he doesn't really get a good angle on clearing it. So it's more
Mm,
like a clumsy clearance. And I agree with you, but we make this comparison all the time because it's the only comparison we can make to Messi at this point in the MLS. But I remember Beckham getting frustrated like this too. In the early years of Beckham, he was in everybody's face. Every single game, I was breaking up
yeah, that's true.
him
That's
and
true.
somebody else because the MLS just gets to you. This league is different because we are in your face. It's changed over the years. However, we got better quality players, and it's more, it's got a different style to it.
Technical. It's more technical than it was.
But however, it's still guys like Goodie that are going to get in your face. South Americans that don't mind. In Europe, Messi, with the teams that he was on, he could go a whole game without getting touched. And there's more of a respect to defensive posture for guys like that. They're not all over you getting. They're going to give you your space, give you the ball. They'll get back even deeper in their block of 8. This is like, let's go toe to toe. And
it's got this league does have a CONCACAF flair to it, which is gritty and grimy, and it is what it is. The league missed a perfect opportunity to give the Tennessee Waterslide a new nickname in Jacob Shaffelburg. Why they haven't come up with a Shaffelbanger yet, I don't know. But if they want to use it, if he keeps scoring goals like that, feel free to trademark it. Just give me a little bit of credit. That's all I'm asking for. Something on a T-shirt. I want that.
I didn't know his right foot had that. That was.
I don't think he did either. But it doesn't matter because once it's in the back of the net, it's happened forever. So I would love to see some more out of him, especially in Miami. That would be fun. I was thinking about different personalities that have an ability to make you remember, make you feel something about who they are. And he's got the flow. He's already got one nickname. This might be two. We might be watching a blossoming star here, which would be pretty cool. Another blossoming star in Brandon Vasquez goes home to Cincinnati and drops the game winner on FCC. Did you guys see that game at all? Monterrey, Cincy?
Saw a little bit of it. Yep.
Dax, what'd you think?
Thought it was a good game. Thought it was a high quality game. Two really good teams. I think Cincinnati's going to feel pretty bad about not getting on the board. They had some chances. They played well. They went toe to toe with, in my opinion, one of the best teams in CONCACAF. I think that's clear. And they left a lot out there. And now I think the challenge is huge for them to go and get a win and get a result in Monterrey in Mexico. So it was a really, really high quality game. And this is what you were alluding to kind of in the beginning of the pod, Dan, is that these teams would play MLS teams off the park 2-3 years ago. Right. And so now they're coming in to these MLS stadiums. It's early in our seasons. They're in mid-season form. They have astronomical salary outlays, and MLS teams are, by and large, being the better teams. Now, that doesn't mean anything when you can't score and when you can't get a result. And it's funny that Brandon Vasquez actually ended up being the guy to score on FC Cincinnati when FC Cincinnati gets shut out. And it doesn't look to me like FC Cincinnati has properly replaced Brandon Vasquez. I think Corey Baird is a very good player. I think he's a very useful player. He's not Brandon Vasquez. I think Bupenza, for me, the jury's still out on him. I've seen him score some great goals, and then I've seen him completely disappear and be invisible in some games. And I'm not convinced that they have the same attacking firepower that they had last year. And let's not forget, they lost, in my opinion, their second or third best attacker in Alvaro Barreal, who was, his connection with Acosta was almost on another level. It's probably not at the same level as like a Jordi Alba Messi, but it was very, very good between Acosta and Barreal. And Barreal was one of their most dangerous attacking outlets, right? And so to lose him and to lose Brandon Vasquez, to me, I think they've tried to replace them, and maybe it'll take a little bit more time. But you can see it's just disjointed right now, and it's not really fluid. So I think Cincinnati, I think they have a chance, but it's a small chance. I think Monterrey is going to win down in Mexico. But it was a good game. It was a very good game.
Gordo, you got the close Champions Cup games. You got Tigres, Orlando in Mexico. You got Philly, Pachuca in Mexico. And you got Monterrey, Cincy in Mexico. Of those three, you taking any MLS sides to come out of that?
Man, I want to keep thinking that Orlando is the team that we saw at the end of last season that was going to come in. We all had high hopes.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't seen it yet. So at this point, I'm not going to bank on that one. The one that I don't know, man. Mexico's a different animal. It really is.
Mexico's Mexico. Yeah.
I think Philly, watching their first leg or a little bit of it, they have that tournament team. They're grinders, they're tight, they're compact, they've been there before, they've done this. So if anybody's gonna go out and grind out a win, it's 100% gonna be Philly. Are they sexy? I don't think they've ever been sexy, but they know they're comfortable with each other, they're organized, and they work their tails off for each other. I mean, Jim Curtin got them flowing like, well-oiled machine. And they were pretty impressed. I was pretty impressed by them as well in the first leg. I thought they went toe-to-toe with them. Could have, should have, would have, probably should have won. Who had the little dinker that he could have put over on the rebound. But yeah, I could see them going into Mexico and winning.
It's definitely Philly, Gordo. I don't know why I find myself agreeing with you a lot on this pod. I don't know what's changed. The power of the mustache. The reason why Philly has the best chance, and I know Orlando didn't concede an away goal either, but Orlando Tigres, I just think Tigres is too strong down there. I think Philly's going to go through because they didn't give up an away goal, which was huge. And so I think Philly, I think they're going to win the game. I think they're going to have a goal scoring draw, and that's going to be enough to let them go through.
Yeah, I like Philly too for all the reasons you guys have suggested. I think the biggest thing for me, though, that you said, Gordo, is this is one of the only teams that still is a team that's gone through this now for multiple years. And going down, there's something to be said for going down to Mexico, but there's also something to be said for going down to Mexico 5 years in a row and continuing to do it and do it and do it. And these results that they're picking up on the road, I mean, they went to Saprissa and got a result on the road. Like, Saprissa is probably one of the toughest places to play in North America. Easily. I don't know if either of you guys have played there. I played there, and it is intimidating. Like, it's wild. So I'm on that with you. Let's ride that. And they also, to be fair, they missed their game against Seattle this weekend because of the rain. So that game got postponed. So they don't have 90 under their legs. It's just a home and away, which at this point might favor Philly. I think it does favor Philly. So I'm riding with you guys.
Let's not forget Columbus, Houston. It's tonight in Columbus. Columbus is up 1-0. I think Columbus.
I didn't list that one because for me, in my mind, it's not
Columbus going to take care of business. Yeah.
Right. It's similar to your assessment, Gordo, about Orlando. I don't think that we've seen a Houston team that is worthy of any praise yet either. And a lot of people picked them to be dangerous coming out of the end of last season too. So they don't have it for me either. We did have a Dax McCarty first home game, the first experience debut in the Five Stripes. The Five Stripes don't stop, and clearly neither does Dax McCarty in year number 91. Dax, how was it? How was the 70,000 plus that I have experienced personally? I was waiting to hear what your experience was on the field.
There's a moment when before the starting 11 walks through the tunnel, right, where they've got some music playing, the lights are kind of going down low, it's dimming, and obviously for this game, I'm sitting on the bench, and you start to hear the music playing, and you hear the anticipation, the buildup of the crowd, and the guys start walking out onto the field, and you've got the flames going, and you've got the
and it needs to be said, just to set a little bit of this stage on how big Atlanta United is in Atlanta. Yeah. Big Boi from Outkast is driving the stake on opening day. We're talking superstars.
Dude, I gotta say, there's not many moments. I think Leagues Cup final last year, opening up Geodis Park, first game in Nashville SC's history against Atlanta United at Nissan Stadium. It was 65,000 people. There's not many moments in the last 5-6 years where I've been gotten legitimate chills going throughout my body, but that was one of them. And that was in that moment, I was like, holy shit, Atlanta United, we all knew they were a big deal, but like,
Yeah.
you don't find that everywhere. You really don't. And it was in that moment exactly where I was like, damn, I really wish I was starting. And I really wish I was from the beginning here, you know, because these are the types of games that you just want to be a part of the whole time. Right. And so look, from an outsider, you know, from an outsider's perspective to now coming into it and seeing what happens on the inside, it's huge, man. And it's awesome. And I tell you what, being an opponent, and I remember coming to the stadium plenty of times when they had 30, 40,000 people here, but being New England coming in there with 65, 70,000 people just on top of you the entire game, it's intimidating, man. And that pressure works both ways, right? Because if you're the home team and you don't play well, like that can get to you as well, right? And so those are games you want to play in though, where the stakes are incredibly high and there's eyeballs on you from minute 1 to minute 90, and you just expect and need to be at your best the whole time. It's awesome. It was really cool.
Let me tell you a fun little fact here. All right. Let me wow you. Okay.
Is this with factual detail or just
this is without me touching my computer. Okay. There was 86,000 people there. And it was the third largest crowd on the weekend in the world.
Are you sure about that?
I'm positive. I'm pretty positive. Like 77%.
Positive, pretty positive.
86,000 people. It was the third largest crowd.
That seems high, Gordo.
Gordo, I'm telling you right now, I think you're right. It was the third largest crowd in the world at that moment. I'm taking the under with extreme confidence on the 86,000 number. Okay.
I think their at capacity crowd is somewhere around 78,000. I'm thinking Gordo's confusing an 8 with a 6. If he said 66,000, I'd be more inclined to agree with him. But yes, there were a ton of people there. I've been there. I've called games, Dax, and Atlanta United is a massive operation, dude, and it is a big deal in Atlanta. And you are.
Wait, hold on, we just got a face. What's the face saying? What's the face saying?
I switched the 8 with the 6. It was 8,000. It was still the third largest.
I wish I would have
still the third largest. What I was going to say though is Atlanta United is one of those teams, referencing what we were talking about earlier. How do you get a midweek game and people to show up? Atlanta United is an organization that gets 70,000 to midweek games and has done it, which is that blows my mind that they're doing that, because I don't know of any other organization, at least in North America, that's doing that. You're putting up a midweek game, maybe Thursday night football in the NFL, but even that, you're not guaranteed to sell those games out depending on the venue and the opponent. So,
Dax, I've played in Atlanta once with you in Chicago, but it wasn't a sold out crowd. I've played in Seattle, and that's when it's packed and it's rock.
Yep.
Compare the two for me, so I can know what
I can. Let me before you do, Dax, because I'm gonna dog Atlanta here a little bit. The crowd in Seattle's better. The crowd in Seattle for me is maybe just a little noisier, maybe a little bit more knowledgeable. But I do think that the crowd in Atlanta is different. And that's one of the coolest things in Atlanta is the crowd in Atlanta is white, black, purple, yellow, blue. It is everybody that really fills in Atlanta in the building all at once. And everybody is talking Atlanta United, wearing the gear. And it feels a lot different than Seattle. The feel in Seattle is different.
I'm going to disagree with you, Dan. Not just because I want to disagree with you or because I'm playing for Atlanta United now, but because I've played in Atlanta a bunch of times and I've played in Seattle a bunch of times since you dinosaurs have retired. Sorry to be said.
Yeah.
Seattle. I think Seattle 5 years ago, yes, 100%. You're right. Seattle now, I don't think so. I think Seattle, even with all of their success, I don't think they're seeing the same numbers in the stands that they used to. And I don't know. I don't know why that is. Call it
probably because Gordo and I retired, and they don't have the matchups with the Galaxy anymore.
Probably
they don't have anybody to hate anymore.
They don't have anybody to hate anymore.
But for me, I think that the crowd in Atlanta, there's not much that can compare to what we saw the other night, especially in the beginning of the second half, where Giorgos Giakoumakis just goes completely nuclear and scores a hat trick and scores some of the best goals you'll see all season. I mean, the energy and it was right in front of the 17s, the supporter section. I mean, it's different, but it just feels like the yellow wall at Dortmund when everyone's throwing beer and waving flags.
Dude, they are fun.
He's giving it the "Are you not entertained?" right in front of him. I'm sitting there, little old me is sitting there warming up on the sideline, doing my sprints, and I'm like, Gigi, come over to me, man, give me a hug, come on, come on. And so it was electric, man. And if I may, can I let you guys in on a little like pregame, vibe for me, because this is something, Dan, you might know about it, but this is something that I wasn't really used to. The whole pregame routine is something I wasn't used to, right? And so I'd heard about it. But, at a home game, usually, you cook your own pregame meal, you eat in the comforts of your own home, you get to the stadium an hour and a half, 2 hours before the game, you throw your stuff on, you're ready to rock, right? Well, Atlanta, we do things a little differently here. And it was an experience for me. So we get to the stadium 4 hours early, we eat pregame meal together as a team, which is great. I think that's fantastic. And now, there's this tradition that they have where you put on a suit, you get your tailored fitted suit, and you leave the stadium, and then you come back and you get off a bus and you walk around, and there's like thousands of people outside the stadium, and it's a tradition.
I am well aware of this tradition.
So it goes back to when they used to play at the first stadium they played at. What was it called?
Bobby Dodd, before the Benz was done. And I think it was organic. I think the coolest thing about it was that it was organic. I think it's a great connection with the fans. I did it. I wasn't used to it. It was a little bit unorthodox, but I thought it was great. I was going around, you're right before the game, you're signing autographs, you're kissing babies. And it was unique. Trust me, it's very unique. It took a little bit to wrap my head around the fact that like I'm there with my boys eating pregame meal, I'm chilling in the locker room, and now I'm going to do this new tradition. But I loved it. I thought it was excellent. I think it's a great way to you're on record as saying you love this.
I love it. I think it's a great way to interact and connect with fans. I think it's brilliant. Obviously, it gets a little overwhelming at times if you stop to sign a million autographs. You feel almost guilty. Like I feel almost guilty that I can't sign everyone's autograph or take every picture that I want, right? But we do have a warm-up to get to and a game to get to. So that's for me the only thing where I'm like, hey, Atlanta fans, if you see this and I'm like signing a few autographs and I accidentally miss you, I'm sorry. All right. We're just trying to get to warm-ups. But the one thing that killed me before the game, we're doing video before the game. We do our video prep and we're doing like a little mental activation. And I think it's like we have like 15 minutes before we have to put our suits on and go out to the bus. We had just gotten fitted in these tailored suits, these suits fitted for us a couple weeks back, right? And so I hadn't tried my suit on. And so 15 minutes before the game, the guys are getting suited up. I go over, I unzip my bag, and I get my suit out. I'm like, oh, man, this thing looks pretty clean, pretty fresh. I throw the shirt on. I'm like, little big, little baggy. I'm like, I don't love that. I throw the pants on. Guys, this isn't my suit. There's no way this is my suit. I'm not kidding. I put this suit on. I'm getting roasted by the entire locker room for how baggy and big it is. I'm having flashbacks to when I'm 18. I'm getting drafted by FC Dallas, and I've got Dart McCarty's suit on, my dad. I didn't have my own suit. So I've got his suit on. It's literally the sleeves are coming down past my knuckles, right? So I'm wearing this suit, and I'm looking at the staff around us, and I'm like, guys, this isn't my suit. There's no way. Mind you, I've just unpacked all my stuff. I don't know where any dress shoes are. So thank God they had extra dress shoes for me at the stadium, and they're a little too tight, so my toes are hurting. I'm thinking, I can't be seen in public, but now I'm gonna have to go do this walk with like 4,000 or 5,000 people there, and I'm hating it. And so I have a picture of me in the suit, which you will not see the light of. It will not.
Yes. Get that on the socials.
The Journeymen aren't getting that picture.
Get it on the socials.
But anyways, I think it's a cool tradition. I love it. It's a great way to interact and connect with fans. Obviously,
let me tell Gordo a little bit about this, because this for me is one of the dumbest things I've seen still incorporated into Major League Soccer. One,
of course,
listen. I love all the sentiment behind it. What you're saying, I think, is great. It's an opportunity to interact with fans. It's an opportunity to engage like kind of naturally, but at this point, it's not natural. It's the opposite of natural. And I think, and I could be wrong, but I'm going to throw some info at you where this originated, I think, from Bobby Dodd. I think you're right. But this was also Tata Martino bringing the team into the training center early to then get on the bus to then go to the stadium. Wow. So this goes back that far of Martino bringing in and having a group ready to go. So then the timeline all aligns to getting to the stadium. And the stadium, I think, also had something to do with television, which is no longer part of what we do, right? It's all kind of streamed and you can get the content whenever you need to get the content. So now that this is still going on, because this was happening once they moved into the Benz, and they wanted to keep this for TV. They wanted to film the guys walking in their suits. I don't know if it was Darren thought it was valuable to have that view, or Carlos, or maybe it was just the television liked it. It could have been all of the above, but they liked the optics of it, and they also liked it to do it on a weekly basis. So now you guys sit around for hours, right? And then throw these suits on, and then walk out, get in the bus, drive around the stadium with an escort to fans that have been waiting there, to get off the bus, to walk through the fans, to walk down the stadium, go back in your locker room and unchange again. It just seems like—
Why do you have to get on a bus? Why don't you just—
Because it's too big, dude. It's not. Mercedes-Benz is massive.
Yeah, it's like a long walk outside the stadium. There are fans lined up. It's cool.
It'd be like a 3.5 mile walk by the time you got out there and back with like 6 different staircases.
Mercedes-Benz is massive.
It's huge. You wouldn't be able to do it from a time standpoint.
I get it.
But no, dude, it's silly, and it needs to be. And these are some of the things that, like, I'm glad that you have enjoyed it. If you are an Atlanta United player that's been there for 4 years, I can only imagine the curse words that are coming out of your mouth when you get on a bus after having put your slacks and your dress shoes back on to go outside to walk through a bunch of fans. And this is part of where MLS clubs need to step up and do a little bit more to protect their players. And I know that I think anyone's going to get hurt? No, absolutely not. But we're talking about a lot of eyeballs, a lot of pressure, a lot more intensity that is around the game, that I think that some of this kind of like stunt stuff, it almost feels a lot like MLS 1.0. And we're nowhere near MLS 1.0 anymore.
I respectfully disagree, Dan. I think that it's a good way to continue to, build the culture and the relationship with the club and your supporters, right?
Says the guy that's sitting on the bench and knows he's not starting. Sure, think about the other way around.
All right, maybe. Well, but all I can say for now is that I think it was really cool. It was my first time experiencing it. I loved it. Obviously, guys that have been around for 4 or 5 years, maybe they feel differently. I don't know. But you know what? I think it's a cool way to interact with the supporters and the fans. If I'm starting a game and
first timer, we'll check in with you at the end of the season.
If I'm starting a game and I'm rushed to get warmed up, my only concern is my suit. All right, let's get my suit properly tailored so I can look good and feel good. Right? I didn't feel confident going into that walk. I wanted to feel confident going into that walk. You got fans looking at you like, oh, this is the 36-year-old we signed, and looking at me still in his suit. All right, I at least want to look fresh for the walk. That's all. That's my only complaint, right? So yeah, man. Look, guys, it was an electric atmosphere. As far as the game goes, again, I thought we started the game a little bit slow. I thought New England was good, even coming off their midweek game. And let's give New England a little bit of credit, right? They smacked Alajuelense 4-0 in midweek in CONCACAF, so I don't think they expended too much energy. And they were flying high. They scored some good goals, and so New England's a team I've always rated the last couple of years. I think they've got some really dangerous attacking players, and I knew they were going to present problems for us, and they did. They were probably, based on the chances created, they were probably a little bit better than us in the first half, and probably would have been a better reflection of the game if it was 0-0 or 1-1 maybe, because I think our penalty was deserved. But then the second half started and we jumped all over them. Our best players were our best players: Almada, Giakoumakis, Saba, Sham De Silva. All of our attacking players were dangerous. It felt like we could have scored 5 or 6. So it was great to get in. Obviously, making my debut, I enjoyed it. Standing up there, I mean, you never take it for granted. You never know how long it's going to be able to continue to last. And so I really enjoyed the atmosphere and the vibe. I had very minimal interaction with the ball in my 10 minutes I was on the field, but I did have one play where I won the ball at the top of the 18, got a little give and go with Mosquera, and I sprinted about 70 yards down the field to give it to Almada. and he took a shot, he missed, and I was gassed after that. like just full sprint with the ball down the field, and I was looking for a little give and go with him. He didn't play it. Fair enough. If you win a World Cup, you don't have to give me the ball back. That's for sure. But yeah, it was a really cool experience, man. And my best friend and his kids were in town. My parents were in town. My kids were there. We got to play on the field after the game. It couldn't have gone much better.
Max, I was not in town, dude. I was here in Denver.
True. I know. Sorry, buddy. You're my third best friend.
Yeah, I caught the first half of that game, dude. I forgot to ask you if you were starting after our last pod. So I was like, dude, I got to see if my boy Dax is in. And then I was judging the guy in your position. I was judging him very critically. I don't like his game. I got to just tell you, I don't like his game.
Stop it. I love you. Thank you. But he's a very good player. You'll see.
I know he's a good player.
He's 2 games into his MLS career. He's like 24. I thought he was very, very good against New England. He grew into the game, and he's going to continue to be good. Trust me.
I know he will. I just wanted to see my boy. But you know what, dude? Talk about slow starts. And number one, I agree with you. I think New England does look sharp, and they were a much better team. But I'm like, Atlanta, let's go. And I'm looking for this Giakoumakis guy to do anything at all, and he doesn't touch the ball. And I'm like, what is everybody talking about with this guy? Now I'm confused because he's supposed to be I picked him to be the Golden Boot winner, and I don't even know what he plays like. And so I've been trying to judge him to pick him because everybody else was picking him. And so I'm looking at him, and the guy, I mean, he had nothing to do with it. And then I had to leave, and I checked the score. I see my boy Dax gets in for a late sub, and he has a hat trick. And I'm like, and I see the goals, and he's got some serious quality in front of net. But once you guys start pumping, I'm sure he's going to get a lot more chances. It just wasn't flowing. You guys weren't going.
Yeah, the first half for us was disjointed. The game became stretched really early. And look, for me, like our attacking players, there's zero question in my mind that they are all going to score a lot of goals and get a lot of
Dax, who's got penalty responsibilities? Is it Almada or is it Giakoumakis?
Well, when we get 2 penalties in a game, it's both of them.
Oh,
they both get penalties.
I know. I saw. That's why I saw. I thought it was somewhat odd.
I would think it's if we only get 1 penalty in a game, it's Thiago. I think Thiago stepped up to take the first one, and so
yeah.
And let's also point this out. This is something that I think is underrated part of this team and this team camaraderie. I think that if you've got a designated penalty taker and they take a penalty in the first half, and then there's another penalty in the second half, it stands to reason that guy would want to step up and take the second one and to continue to score and pad stats or whatever. The fact that, our striker, the guy who we're going to need to score a lot of goals for us this year, he hadn't jumped off the mark yet, and that Almada was humble enough to give him that penalty to get him off the mark. Mm-hmm. I think that speaks a lot to the relationship between those 2 guys. I think it speaks a lot to what we're trying to be more about as a team, which is more humble, which is more team oriented, which is more it doesn't necessarily matter who scores the goals or gets the assists as long as we're winning. And we all know that, that's easy to say, but that's not easy to do. And that's not easy to act on. And so I was really impressed in that moment with Thiago in order to share the responsibility, give the penalty to Gigi. That got him off the mark. And then he scores 2 world-class goals right after that. I don't think that's a coincidence, honestly. Man, he's going to score a ton of goals this year. Gordo, we live in crazy times right now. What are things looking like in the real estate market?
Oh, Dax, you know that rates are always going to be the best with Synergy One lending, and those are always going to fluctuate. But one thing that never fluctuates, that's the service you get with Erin from Fikes Realty Group. She is the #1 agent I will refer all my clients to. She handles all the obstacles up front, really takes the stress out of any transaction and move that you have. Check out my girl, Erin Mishu with Fikes Realty Group at majorleague-realestate.com.
Enough of the soccer stuff. More importantly, did you meet Big Boi or not?
I didn't, unfortunately.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Big fan.
That'd be a good. That's a good one. I mean, he's around a lot. You'll meet him at some point. Dude, I met CeeLo the last year I was there. CeeLo and Goodie Mob. I think CeeLo hit the spike in, and then they came up at halftime, and we did the halftime interview. Me and Kevin Egan, not a clue who any of these guys were, and all of them were there. Gip and Cujo and CeeLo. And he's like, dude, first of all, they were higher than shit. I mean, 4 of the highest dudes I've seen in a long time. And we're trying to ask them these questions on air. And these guys are literally looking through me, like couldn't hear a word I'm saying. I'm like, hey, so I mean, we're talking layups. Like, so what do you think of Mercedes-Benz Stadium? And they'd be like, so our new album's coming out in a week. And that was it.
Yeah, I love my Mercedes-Benz that I drive around every day.
Dude, it was so good. It was so good. Oh,
my goal, I'm going to put it out there for all the journeymen that listen. My goal, because, you know, the staff, they the golden spike thing, the pregame ritual ceremony, I think it's really cool. There's a lot.
And it is a very good one.
We don't like disrespecting any clubs or people on this pod.
There's a lot of really bad ones out there.
There's the New England one. Did you see what did you see what they made
so
my boy Scotty Caldwell do?
Why would Scott agree to do that?
Because he's the nicest human being on the planet. That's why.
Come on, man.
All right.
Did you see this, Gordo?
No.
Really bad.
Oh my God. Dude, so they toss a box of tea from the stands. I'm talking about an empty cardboard box.
With the opponent that they're playing on it.
The Revolution.
Boston Tea Party. It is painful.
It was bad. So anyways, let me put this out in the universe. It is my goal as an avid fan of Inside the NBA, and you guys know Turner Sports is here. Their studios are in Atlanta. I'm going to try to get Shaq or Charles or Ernie to do the golden spike. That's my goal. I'm going to put it out to the universe. Let's manifest it. You know,
I like it.
Let's get it going.
Who would you choose out of those guys?
They're all awesome. Even Kenny, but I would choose Charles. He's electric.
Yeah.
That guy would have no clue what he's doing. He'd be like, soccer? I'm not going to a soccer game.
No, dude. So I've spent a few nights with Charles, and he knows more about soccer
Humble brag.
He wants. No, not a humble brag at all. It's not like Charles called me up and was like, "Hey, Dan, you want to hang out?" That wasn't the case. It was, "Hey, I just happen to be at the right time at the right place. Usually about 1:30 in the morning on a Saturday night when we both done television at the time in Atlanta. There's a couple places where people typically go, and he's there, but he's just as." Dude, no, that's where I hung out with 2 Chainz, but that's another story for another time. But anyway, Charles is just as personable off camera as he is on camera. And he loves soccer. Dude, he was super cool to talk to and hang out with every single time. He is magic. Dude.
All right,
he is magic in a human being. Yeah, get on that. Okay, let's finish this up. Anything stuck out to you in the league this past weekend? Gordo, I asked you to watch a couple games. Which games did you catch, or which things of the games that you saw did you catch? We already talked about Nashville a little bit. I don't think Galaxy is got it together. You know, the backline's still just not good enough for me. Jovic got his goal, and you guys. Yeah, dude, he scored again.
I like 3 games.
I told you, man. I think he's a player.
And he missed a pen. But Puig is the real deal, man. You watch this guy's highlights. He is so good, man. I think he arguably presents the biggest threats out of the 10 position in the entire league. The way that he dices right through defenses and his passing is crisp. He's just so quick on the dribble. Aside from that, I mean, they got to sort it out. They couldn't put it on. I know they're away or whatever, but they couldn't put it on a Nashville team who was, legitimately resting their entire starting lineup, against them. And they could have lost the game. They had some chances, but didn't put them away. But the back line, it just not good enough. So I mean that
dude, and the Galaxy have some off the field issues now too.
That's true. That is true.
Not just on the field issues, which Nashville can eat you up so eloquently, but by Dax McCarty over here. Did you see this?
We saw it. Yeah, guy goes to Broadway, assistant coach. Listen, don't go to Broadway as an opposing a player, coach before a game. It is a bad idea. Bad idea. Okay?
And then spit on somebody, and then talk shit to the cops. Don't do any of those.
Man, that is a pretty bad look, especially the night before game. But I mean, road trips have taken on a different complexion now in this league. There's no post-game hangouts in Nashville, which I'm sure really disappoint a lot of teams. So the only option is the night before. And I mean, let's be honest, dude, these players there's got to be players and teams that are banking on whatever stories are coming out of the night before. And the only opportunities that they have are these assistant coaches that are maybe doing things like this.
Maybe
they have a responsibility to the rest of the team and the flight home.
What do you do as a coach if your assistant coach does that and gets arrested? Is he going to get fired?
I don't know if he gets fired. I feel like that's maybe a reach, but also like you probably need to take a look at what actually happened and see the police report, because it didn't sound good. He was spitting on somebody, and then he's telling police quite a few different things in colorful language, and also like when you're taking your job seriously, that's pretty bad. Yeah, it's about as bad as it gets.
Don't go to the honky tonks, man. Nothing good there happens after midnight.
I'm going to go, but I'm retired.
You are encouraged to go, Gordo. Yeah. Absolutely. How about did you catch the Rocky Mountain Cup?
Yeah. I mean, Colorado got their first dub against a rival. That's one way.
In Salt Lake.
No, in Colorado.
Yes. In Salt Lake.
In Salt Lake.
In Salt Lake.
In Salt Lake. Who is this a bigger result for? Salt Lake losing at home to Colorado, or Colorado winning on the road in Salt Lake?
It's bigger for Colorado because they needed a win. They have. I mean, this is one way, especially early, and they had a poor start, which is okay, right? Like if you come out of it, it's okay to start poor because they got a lot of new pieces, new coach. It looked like they were more. They're figuring it out together, right? And this proves it. Salt Lake, it's not as big of a deal for me because we know who Salt Lake is. This is a game that Salt Lake sometimes wins and sometimes they lose. They need to score more goals. They don't pose a huge threat. They're not going to put 4 on anybody or 3. So they're going to need to win by 2 or 1.
Unless it's a snow game against LAFC.
Yeah, that never happened. So anyway, they get their big striker on the board. This guy Fernandez in the middle looked pretty good. Mihalovic, had a good game as well. So I think they're starting to connect the pieces a little bit. So it's a big win for them.
Who's it a bigger result for?
It's a bigger result for Colorado. It's a bigger result for my Chris Armas. Colorado is going to make the playoffs agenda that I'm pushing heavily on the Journeymen podcast. They are in the playoffs right now. Hey, I don't care if it's 3 weeks in. They're 7th in the West. They're in the playoffs. I'm looking really good right now. All right. Mm-hmm. For me, the things that stood out to me.
I think it's the other side, though.
You think it's Salt Lake?
I think it's a bigger loss for Salt Lake at home with who we expected or who we thought Salt Lake is aspiring to be. That's a tough loss to arguably a bad Colorado team, or at least an out-of-form Colorado team, or maybe a Colorado team that hasn't found their identity yet. To lose that game at home that's a big one. Early in the season, for me, I think that's a bigger disappointment.
Of a pessimist, that's why. You're going to take the loser and pick them up.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. That's possible.
Keep an eye on the middle of midfield for Salt Lake. For me, their best midfielder, Pablo Ruiz, signs a new contract, and he's out for the year. I think he did his ACL. So that's
in that game?
I don't know if it was in the game. I don't think it was. I think it was in training, but keep an eye on that.
Why was Zach McMath?
That's tough.
Was Zach McMath a healthy scratch? Does anybody know? They were playing an 18-year-old.
Don't know the answer, but that goal that he gave up the week before was on the bench. Pretty bad.
McMath was on the bench.
Yeah. Wow. That's not great.
No.
2 things that I want to highlight before we jump off. Toronto FC. They are on 7 points. They have not lost a game this year. They have not conceded a goal this year.
Damn.
For me,
pretty good.
What John Herdman is doing is not sexy. It's not pretty. It's not enjoyable probably to watch or for teams to play against that. But he's instilling belief in a team that has needed it for years now. And a team that has been so weak and loose at the back that it's just they've been shipping goals for fun. And so if you can, what he's done is he's solidified that team and he's brought them together and he said, I'm going to rely on my two DPs. I'm going to rely on Insigne and Bernadeschi to create magic for us. And guess what? That's exactly what's happened. Is it sustainable? Who the hell knows? I have no idea if they're going to be able to sustain that. What I do know is that if you have Insigne bought in, like he's been bought in the first 3 games, scoring bangers and golazos left and right. First was the chip against New England, 1-0, away win. Great. Next was in the most recent game that they played, banger, top corner. Yeah. Something that we've seen him do 100 times.
So is Herdman a whisperer? Does he have it?
He has it right now. And
Gordo, is Herdman a whisperer?
That's the old Bruce Arena tactic, by the way, Dax, that you mentioned.
Is it?
Yeah.
Solidify
your superstars got to be your superstars, right?
I'm just more impressed with how they're defending. I mean, I don't care. Say what you want to say about if it's ugly, if it's pretty.
St. Louis did that last year. St. Louis did that last year.
Yeah. I think that what Toronto's doing right now is very impressive, and I'll be curious to see if they can keep that up. And I want to highlight one of my old squads, the New York Red Bulls. I think they've started the season really well. I watched the game against Nashville. I thought they should have won that game, and they were unlucky not to. Forsberg looks every bit worth whatever price, whatever salary they're giving him. And we talked about it a little bit off air, Dan. Lewis Morgan coming back has been huge for them.
He's fun.
We both rated him when he was in Miami. I thought Red Bull did well to get him from Miami. Bad injury last year, in and out of the lineup, fitness issues last year. I hate when people say this, but it's like a new signing for them. Getting him healthy and fit and pairing him with Forsberg, the thing that Red Bull has struggled with for years now, is chance creation and scoring goals. I still don't think they have a top 9, but they are creating chances and they're getting goals from midfielders. So if they can get a striker to hit a run of form, if they can bring in a new striker, I don't know what their plan is. Their backline and midfield and the way they play is always going to keep them competitive. It's always going to keep them in games. So they've been very impressive. They're sitting on 7 points. They haven't lost. I think that they deserve a little bit of a shout out too. So really impressive start to the year from the Red Bulls and Toronto FC.
Those are a lot of astute observations out of the two of you. I am very impressed. I want to close. I just want to close on a little challenge to our viewers and our subscribers. We've talked, I think, a fair amount about a handful of clubs that typically tend to dominate the conversations, but I think we've also talked about wanting to kind of spread that love around and really kind of divest some energy and attention into some other clubs. So here's what we're going to do. On this episode, the most amount of comments from any one team's club. So fans from any one club will take a dive into that club. Really, let's watch the games. Let's watch the, maybe analyze a little bit more of the offseason signings, some of the acquisitions, some of the
unless it's Inter Miami. We're not doing
unless it's Inter Miami. Some of them, listen, this is not a democracy. We get to choose, but I think that there's a heavy skew here to some engagement because we do have I think we do have an honest intention in trying to get around some of these other teams that will force us to throw those games on and not just go to the layups. So let's correlate that. Let's count them up. Statman Jack, Mikey Meredith will keep us apprised, and then we'll throw it on the tube this weekend. Dax, best of luck to you. And Gordo,
big rivalry game for us this weekend coming up. Orlando City coming to town.
Yeah,
I thought Nashville was Atlanta's rival.
we have like
so many rivals.
We've got rivals.
Oh, Journeymen, we'll see you out there.